everyone, thanks for being here. This video is going to be a bit of a departure from the Go Show readings and analysis that I've been doing for over a year now. I want to keep that going. I want to read and engage with you in all of the Go Show. It is the most voluminous compendium of information that we have that's close to contemporary. I know it's 13th century, but Buddhist teachings are almost 3,000 years old. So studying Nichiren's letters gives us a very personal insight into the practice of Buddhism, the scholarship that he is obviously a master of, and his application to arguably a more modern culture, even though it's extremely authoritarian, shogunate, and all of that. It's a little more relatable to us today than a lot of the expedient means from other cultures that are thousands of years old. But nevertheless, other than their importance in our study of Buddhism, they're rather voluminous, and most of us, if you're anything like me, to do that alone and read through that scholarship can be quite daunting. So this is why I've been pursuing the Go Show. But I've also done the same kind of analysis on the Lotus Sutra, the Vimalakirti, the Lankavatara, and the Perfection of Wisdom, the Diamond, and I will do more of those. But I like to intersperse these little musings, answering questions that I sometimes see in the comments or that pop up in my head about certain subjects in Buddhism that it's either difficult to find a lot of information on, or very varied and disparate information online. We all know how much the internet is a great source of information, but it's also a source of misinformation. So I like to talk about those things. I want to touch on something today that it's a huge subject. But even, and I'm not going to dive too deeply into it today, but other than to say that I have several videos, they've been up for quite a while, so they may bear some revision or reinvestigation. I haven't reviewed those in years, but on the origin of life, the 3,000 realms, I have a whole playlist dedicated to just those videos. And even like the Go Show, really, if you want to dive into the 3,000 realms, first of all, if you appreciate scholarship, if you appreciate answering those nagging questions of what does he mean when he keeps saying Nidanna, or what does he mean when he says the 5 aggregates, the 5 skandhas, or the 10 factors, or all these numeric, mathematical sounding things from Buddhist scholarship all the way back to Shakyamuni's day, it can be very helpful in creating specific insights for your practice of Buddhism and your awakening of Buddhahood. So we can't just cast them aside. We all will want to learn these concepts at whatever level satisfies our yearning to understand. And that's what's important. So today I wanted to talk about the skandhas, or the 5 aggregates. What the heck is that? And what does it mean to my Buddhist practice, more to the point? It is, studying these kind of things like the 5 aggregates is a little bit like pulling on a thread in a sweater. The the more you know about it, the more you need to know. The more, and let me put it in other words, it's really difficult, although not impossible. You could just study, find material to study the five skandhas, or the five aggregates. You could stop at, here, I'll just name them off for you. Number one is rupa, or the form or matter. Number two is Vedana, sensations or feelings. Number three is sana, perception, conception, appreciation, cognition, or discriminations. Number four is sankhara, the mental formations, impulses, volition, fabrications, and compositional factors. And number five is the vijnana, or consciousness, or discernment. And you might stop there. You might think, well, that gives me a handle on what the five aggregates are. Okay, let's move on. Great, you just got it. You can terminate this video and go on to the next one. But if you've studied the 12-linked causal chain, or the Nidanna, or the 10 factors, which we recite every time we do Gangyo, right? Nyoze so, nyoze in, nyoze en, nyoze ka, nyoze ho, nyoze hon, maikuko. The 10 factors. They're all, and ultimately the 10 worlds, which are interspersed, right? They're interdependent. You can have the world of hell and hunger and animality all individuated, but the truth is all 9 or all 10 of them contain the other 10. This is where we get the 100 of the 3,000 realms as a multiplier, right? So it's all interconnected, and to study one is to infiltrate the others in some degree, in some way. I made this chart, and I think I have it posted on my website under the 3,000 realms, or the origins of life. And you can see this is a kind of a shorthand of all of the concepts, and you can download this off my website. And you can see the 5 aggregates precipitated from the Nidanna, or congruent with the Nidanna, which combine to be formations, which yield the 10 factors: appearance, nature, so on and so forth. And that plunges us into samsara, the 10 worlds. That's our experience of life. So we move from Noumena, or simply potential, all the way through the chart and into samsara, the 10 worlds. So this you could look at it as the birth sequence, if you will. And this happens in every single moment of life. So there's a quick shorthand for you. I have other charts that I think I have online too, trying to encapsulate the process, the loop, if you will, of life and death, right? So you could, and then I've tried to simplify it. I'm just showing you these charts because I want you to appreciate that I have tried diligently to mold this understanding of what we call a life, a lifetime, and this is the moment-to-moment visualization. So it's there's a tremendous amount of scholarship around all of these, and it's another more evidence, I should say, of Buddhism's history and the way it has taking things apart to its infinite understanding. but it's easy, you know, if you're on first seeing this kind of stuff, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, and you just get lost in these terms and these numbers: 10 this, 5 that, 3 that. It's a lot of information. But I want to encourage you, because if this catches your attention at all, at some point in your practice, one or more of these terms is going to start piquing your interest. You're going to be practicing, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a decade, but at some point in your practice, you're going to, what is this aggregate thing I keep hearing about? It becomes a stumbling block. You know, this is what we humans do. We like discernment is a big part of our experience of life. We want to discern whether we like this kind of cheese or that kind of cheese, or cheese at all. We want to discern what something tastes like, experiences, feels like. It's a form of knowing, right? It's a form of knowing that increases our confidence about living life. So this is samsara. We want to dissect things. We want to understand things, whether it's deeply or shallow, whatever the amount of knowledge is that satiates our desire to know, categorize, and move on. That's what we do. This is why a baby, a child, sticks everything in their mouth. It's this desire to know. You might say it's also a desire to feed itself, but beyond that, there's a real desire. It's a cognitive thing, an experience of. And when we're young, we're not very mobile, and so anything within a certain range of perception is subject to our curiosity. And to the degree that our curiosity can be sated through our experience is a color of who we are. It's and it changes. You know, when you're a child, it takes very little information to satiate our curiosity. And yet, as we grow older, we'll return undoubtedly to all those same things that we experienced before. And some of those things we'll look at and we'll go, I know the experience of that. I know what those little wood blocks, painted wood blocks, taste like. You don't have to taste them again. But you may get more interested in them if you get interested in fabricating things in a woodshop class in junior high, when you're making little decorative things for your mom or your dad or yourself, and you're learning how to use tools and work with wood. You may then go home and see those little wood blocks that your little sister or little brother is playing with, and you'll pick them up anew, like they're a completely new object, and you will see how the letters are routed out and how the paint is chipping, and you'll experience those same little wood cubes differently. That's the human experience. We like to understand whatever it is that grabs our attention. We like to dissect it. At whatever level, we're all different. So we'll dissect it to satiate our particular desire for information, knowledge, experience, whatever. So in the Buddhist way of looking at existence, the world, the process of life, that becomes a curious thing. Why do I want to know how that cube is made? What does it matter? What is it in my life, in my mind, that requires or desires further information about this? Why? What is that? How is that? Remember, why is a very cursory, slippy slope. because that's admired in our very mechanisms of desire and opinion and all. Why is a weird one, and I encourage you to stay away from that. Whenever you find yourself asking that or saying that why word, immediately ask yourself what do you really want to know, because why is kind of a disguise. What you really want to know is, what is that? How is that? When, the five W's of journalism, right? The why one is it's very slippery. So I wouldn't admonish you for using it, but I'm saying use it make it a worthy word, in other words, to lead you to these other questions, which are much more useful. To find out what something is and how something is far more useful than this aberrant why that really has no basis for questioning. It's a sort of a lament, really. And if you use the question why as a guide, you will be unsatisfied. So, certainly in Buddhism, the why is not respected. What is respected, what is called scholarship, is identification. This is where we are in samsara. We identify things. So if we're going to seek through information to understand the science of Buddhism, then we have to describe the discernments. Not only that we discern, but how do we discern? How do we individuate things? How do we identify things? And why do we want to know that? Because it's like being a doctor. The better we understand the way our mind constructs our reality, the more we understand our experience and how it is created. We all create our own experience. We all create our own life. How do we do that? What is the mechanism? This is where the why is very misleading. That's a nonsense question in terms of how do we discern our lives? What are the mechanisms? And Buddhism, like nothing else, really digs deep into the mechanisms and associations of being, the process of life, that helps us to understand profoundly how we construct our life experience. Do you need to know that to awaken to your Buddhahood? No. Yes. It would be more accurate to say that all of us need to know that at our own particular depth. So why make this video? Because I want you to have confidence that if you have a question about any aspect of this, Buddhism answers it to the nth degree. Here's something else that happens when you study these various concepts. Suddenly, as you grasp these whats and hows, you become much more aware of all of the other rhetorical sciences and questions in our lives. When somebody talks about how to boil water, or how to make a nuclear reactor, or how the universe was born out of this tremendous super hot reaction, how the universe is expanding, how the earth is such a precious moment. All of these things suddenly, as you learn more about the 10 worlds, the 10 factors, the 5 aggregates, the Nidanna, those things no longer seem huge and unknowable. They start to all fall into line Of course the universe does this. Of course the earth is this. Of course things become clear. Now that is an experience that Buddhism is resolving. It is incredibly valuable. This is why study in Buddhism is so important, because apart from your practice of chanting to your mandala, your gohonzon, your recitation and your copying and your sharing of the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge Kyo, the teachings in their entirety, the study engages your samsaric mind fully. And as you develop your samsaric mind along with your Buddha mind through your practice, the two come together to more profoundly actuate your Buddha wisdom. That makes sense? This is why study is one of the three foremost pillars of Buddhist practice. Right? There's study. There's practice, chanting, reciting. And there's resolve. Because resolve is the thing that carries you through all three. It's what builds your confidence. It builds your human mind's necessity of knowing in order to fully experience. When you know and experience, you achieve. You achieve in Buddhism, Buddhahood, enlightenment, clarity. Clarity comes from no longer having questions about, no longer being nagged by mysteries. There's no mysticism in Buddhism. It's hardcore. This is what it is. This is what it is not. That is, if you wanted to define very, very objectively what Buddhism is, it is that. The study of what is and what is not. How much more samsaric could you be? So, Buddhism and Buddhahood, again, are shown to be an experience within this life. Completely samsaric. There is no point at all to conceive of or to in a way, as I'm talking to you, the idea of an afterlife or before life, that's such an effort for human minds to absolve themselves of the here and now and invest in magic, unknowable. If you study these subjects, the Nidanna, the 5 aggregates, or Skandhas, the 10 factors, the 10 worlds, it becomes, it's like this conceptual drawing that I did. Oops, it's hard to get this right. Anyway, from noumena to phenomena. There is nothing else to be experienced before or after now. And all of the constructs that we make as human beings around the now, the past, the future, and further, they're almost irrelevant. They're only relevant, let me say it another way, in the aspect of our human experience of life. because it's impossible for us to stop projecting ourselves into a future. And it's seemingly impossible for us to forget about past. But if we understand, instead of why, if we understand how we leave one moment and enter the next, we begin to understand the what of life, and thereby the whole process of life. So, I don't know how much I've stuck to the original idea of discussing the 5 aggregates, or the 5 skandhas, except that without admiring you in a bunch of terms and a description of those terms and what each of them means, I will leave that to you to study, because it has much greater value for your experience of what it means in your life experience than for me to just read a bunch of data and information. It's not going to gel unless you read it for yourself. I can talk to you about it in general terms, like on this chart of the 5 different rupa, form and matter, sensations, feelings, and you can have an appreciation for what the aggregates are just from that. But at some point, you're going to want to know, where do these 5 aggregates, where do they come from? How do they manifest? And then you're going to end up studying the Nidanna, which will walk you through the whole process of instantiation, from potential to an idea to tendency and condition, kind of a matrix, which, by the way, that runs throughout. Everything, every part of us, every cell in your body has a tendency and a condition in which it can express that tendency or not express that tendency. If you know nothing else about genetics or DNA, that is the one thing you will understand. Like I was saying earlier, if you study the Nidanna and then you hear somebody discussing DNA and you go, oh yeah, it's that magical stuff, but you hear them talking about little switches in the DNA that enable or disable and have relationships among each other, you're going to go, that's like the Nidanna at work. Wow, that's fascinating. You will have an insight that you never would have had before. This is the benefit of the study of Buddhism. It will, to the nth degree, teach you how the entire process of life works. Is that essential for attaining your enlightenment? No. Is it helpful? Very much so. Is it helpful to increase your confidence and resolve in your practice? Absolutely. Is it something that when you're chanting Namu Myo Renge Kyo and directing it to your object of focus, if that backlog of information about the Nidanna, the 5 aggregates, the 10 factors and so forth is whispering around in there, will your Daimoku connect more quickly to your Gohonzon? Your Buddha wisdom? Certainly. They're all tied together, inextricable. To what degree do you need to know it in order to experience your Buddha mind? Each of us is different. The 10 factors. Who could argue that anything you experience through any of your senses has an appearance, a nature, an entity, power, influence, inherent cause, relation, latent effect, manifest effect, consistency from beginning to end? From a quark, whichever one you pick, to bosons, to chromosomes, to livers and eyeballs, to trees and mountains, all of them have these 10 factors. Nothing's left to chance or undescribed in Buddhism. Just knowing that gives you a certain level of confidence, doesn't it? To know that Buddhism isn't based on just some minor set of opinions or factors, that it is so in-depth a study in the process of life and all things, that if you want an answer, you'll find it. And you'll find it with such a thorough investigation that it becomes incontrovertible. And if you want to experience that incontrovertibility, if I can make that word up, chant. It all comes together in Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, so I didn't want to make this too long a video, but it's something that I've mentioned cursorily, and I always wrestle when I start to get into these in-depth studies, because I have a lot online that discusses all of these things. Here's a drawing I didn't show you. That's about how the 5 aggregates move through time, right? And the moment-to-moment existence as we're traveling through this constant Nidanna. I try to put together helpful aids, not to, as I'm often catch myself saying, not to add brevity, but just to share visions that I get in my mind as I study. I'm a very visual person, and I think that sometimes having some kind of an imagery is a helpful tool to get little aha moments, or to at least inspire greater investigation. So I hope that I provide that. Vasubandhu wrote at length about the Skandhas. But saying that, I encourage you not to stop with Vasubandhu's descriptions, because Vasubandhu was talking about the Skandhas from a perspective of earlier teachings, early Mahayana, and not that he denied the Lotus Sutra, but these concepts developed in Sakyamuni's teachings from early through middle, and then in the later Mahayana, all of these teachings are, I don't want to say taken for granted, but they're taken as known. So in the same way that studying advanced mathematics won't make much sense to someone who hasn't learned a significant amount of mathematics before, so too I'm telling you that studying Skandhas and Nidanna, these are early scholarship in Buddhism in order to understand the way the mind works, the way life works. And by the time you get to the Lotus Sutra, all of that is considered knowledge you already have. So the Lotus Sutra doesn't spend any time talking directly about these points, because it assumes you already know. The Lotus Sutra builds on top of them, or makes reference to them very, I don't want to say casually, but at a very high level. Again, assuming a knowledge base. So, again, if you read the Lotus Sutra and it leaves you wondering, how do they make this conclusion? Why does Nichiren say this as such an important aspect of the Lotus Sutra? Because it relies upon a knowledge base that has all of these other things in it. Another reason, again, that I will remind you that study is important in Buddhism, so that you can find for yourself the level of understanding that you need in order to go, aha, I got it, move on. You don't have to study every nitty-gritty, but at some point you're going to come across it. And if you study the 5 skandhas, there's a library of information out there from different sects and different schools of Buddhism, because they spawned from this area of teachings. Even if they don't reflect the insights that you have from the Lotus Sutra, they will give you a basis of knowledge that you will understand from knowing the Lotus Sutra, develop into that. So again, that's kind of a caution, right? That if somebody is talking about these earlier concepts from a standpoint that they are the answer, don't be sucked in as they're the answer. Understand going in that they're giving you an important aspect of what future teachings ultimately take you to. Let them support what you know at a higher level. If you're studying organic chemistry, right, and you have a basic understanding of how organic chemistry works, and then you go in and you study, I don't know, beginning stages of molarity in lab chemistry, with just chemicals, not organic compounds or anything, just simple chemistry. There is something to going back to that and say, oh, right, that's like, from your reference point of knowing organic chemistry, you can go back and that, oh, that's what happens when I combine these organic compounds. There's some of that reaction, and there it is in the early chemistry teachings. They'll always come into use, but they're building blocks. They're not the answer. They're building blocks so that you can reason out the greater compound teaching, right? So try to study with that in mind, so that you don't influence yourself away from the goal. Okay? We do that from time to time as well. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll get back to the Go Show with the next one. I hope this was helpful. Again, go to threefoldlotus.com. On my study page, I have loads of links to all kinds of stuff like that. That'll at least get you started, if not answer your questions outright. And in the meantime, your support means more than I can express. So thank you so much for participating in these things. And I'm not sure on this one how much you'll get out of the podcast, because I had so many visuals in this. But maybe something I said, if it helps you to study, even if it's just to direct you to the website, it's a great resource. And if I'm missing something there, that's what the comments are for. Let me know. All right? Take care of yourself. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Stay healthy.